The golden cage. Nathan Cross adjusted his platinum watch as he stepped out of the sleek black sedan onto the bustling streets of downtown San Francisco. The afternoon sun cast long shadows between the towering glass buildings, and the familiar sounds of city life surrounded him like a symphony he had grown deaf to over the years. At 28, Nathan commanded a technology empire worth billions. Yet as he walked through the crowded sidewalks, he felt more isolated than ever. The Crosstech Industries headquarters loomed behind him, 35 floors of steel and ambition. That housed his life's work. Today's board meeting had gone exactly as planned. Investors were pleased with the quarterly results. The new artificial intelligence division was exceeding projections, and Nathan's vision for expanding into international markets was approved unanimously. Everything was perfect, which somehow made it all feel hollow. James Rodriguez, his assistant for the past 3 years, hurried to keep pace beside him. The young man carried a tablet filled with Nathan's afternoon schedule, his fingers dancing. Across the screen, as he managed the constant stream of calls and messages that followed Nathan wherever he went, "Sir, the car is waiting to take you to the meeting with the Goldman Group," James said, slightly out of breath. "After that, you have the dinner with Victoria Sterling at La Bernardine." Her assistant confirmed she'd be wearing the blue dress you mentioned admiring last week. Nathan nodded absently, his attention caught by the vibrant life of the street around him. Vendors called out their wares, children laughed as they chased pigeons, and couples walked hand in hand, lost in their own private worlds. When had he stopped noticing these simple moments of human connection? Victoria Sterling was everything his mother wanted for him. Beautiful, sophisticated, from a family with the right connections and social standing. Their relationship was efficient. Like everything else in Nathan's life, she understood his schedule, never made unreasonable demands on his time, and photographed well at charity events. Their conversations flowed smoothly across safe topics like art exhibitions, wine selections, and mutual acquaintances. It was a partnership that made sense on every practical level, yet left him feeling like he was playing a character in someone else's story. The street artist as they walked through the historic district, Nathan's attention was drawn to a small crowd gathered around a street vendor's table. Unlike the typical tourist stand selling mass-produced souvenirs, this display showcased an array of handcrafted jewelry that seemed to catch and reflect the afternoon light in mesmerizing patterns. The pieces weren't just accessories, they were miniature works of art, each one unique and intricate. Behind the table stood a young woman who commanded attention not through flashy clothing or aggressive sales tactics, but through the quiet confidence with which she interacted with her customers. Luna Martinez had dark hair that caught golden highlights in the sun. Her hands moved with practiced precision as she demonstrated the intricate mechanisms hidden within her bracelets. She wore simple jeans and a flowing white blouse, yet there was something about her presence that made the expensive boutiques lining the street seem overdressed and trying too hard. "These aren't just bracelets," Luna was explaining to a curious customer, her voice carrying a hint of an accent that suggested roots in a culture where craftsmanship was valued over mass production. "Each one tells a story. This one here represents the journey of water from mountain springs to the ocean. The blue stones follow the path, and if you look closely, you can see how they change color as they flow toward the silver waves." Nathan found himself slowing his pace, then stopping entirely as he watched her work. There was something hypnotic about the way she spoke about her creations, as if each piece contained a piece of her soul. The businessman in him recognized the quality of her marketing, the way she created emotional connections with potential buyers. But there was nothing calculated about her approach. She genuinely loved what she was creating. "Sir," James questioned, noticing Nathan's sudden halt. "The Goldman meeting." "Give me a moment," Nathan replied, his eyes fixed on Luna as she carefully wrapped a purchase for an elderly woman who seemed delighted with her selection. The chance encounter. As the small crowd dispersed, Nathan approached the table with the awkward uncertainty of someone who rarely found himself in unscripted social situations. Luna looked up as he drew near, and he was struck by the directness of her gaze. Her eyes were the color of warm honey, and they seemed to see right through the expensive facade he wore like armor. "Can I help you find something?" she asked her, tone friendly but not deferential. There was no recognition in her expression, no sudden shift in demeanor that Nathan had grown accustomed to when people realized who he was. To her, he was simply another potential customer. Nathan found himself studying the bracelets displayed on the velvet-covered table. Each piece was indeed unique, incorporating elements that seemed to defy traditional jewelry making. Some contained tiny gears that moved when the wearer's wrist turned, others featured stones that seemed to shift color depending on the angle of view. One particular piece caught his attention, a bracelet that appeared to contain a miniature constellation. The stones arranged in a pattern that seemed familiar, yet mysterious. "This one is interesting," Nathan said, pointing to the constellation bracelet. "The pattern reminds me of something, but I can't place it." Luna's face lit up with genuine enthusiasm. "Oh, you have a good eye. That's Cassiopeia, but viewed from a different perspective than we see from Earth. I was thinking about how the same stars might look to someone traveling between worlds, how perspective changes everything we think we know about beauty and truth." The comment surprised Nathan. He had expected a sales pitch about precious metals and artistic technique, not a philosophical reflection on perspective and truth. "You're interested in astronomy?" Among other things, Luna replied with a smile that suggested depths he couldn't begin to fathom. "I find that inspiration comes from everywhere if you're paying attention. The way light bends through water, the mathematical precision of flower petals, the music that exists in the space between heartbeats. It all finds its way into the work somehow." Nathan picked up the Cassiopeia bracelet, surprised by its weight and the warmth of the metal against his skin. As he held it, he could see that the tiny stones were actually suspended in a clear material that allowed them to move slightly, creating the illusion of stars floating in space. The craftsmanship was extraordinary. It's unlike anything he had seen in the high-end jewelry stores where Victoria typically shopped. "How much?" he asked. "For you." Luna studied his face with an intensity that made Nathan feel as if she was reading something written in a language he didn't know he spoke. $50. Nathan almost laughed. He regularly spent more than that on a single glass of wine at business dinners. The bracelet in his hands represented hours of skilled work, artistic vision, and materials that clearly weren't cheap. That seems too low for something this detailed. Luna shrugged, but her smile remained warm. "I don't price based on what people can afford. I price based on what feels right for the piece and the person who's meant to have it." "That bracelet has been waiting here for 3 weeks. I was beginning to think I might have been wrong about it finding its way to the right person." The unexpected connection as Nathan reached for his wallet. Luna continued arranging her display, seemingly unbothered by whether he completed the purchase. This casual indifference to his money was so foreign to Nathan's experience that he found himself wanting to extend the conversation. "You said it was waiting for the right person? How do you know I'm that person?" "I don't," Luna admitted with refreshing honesty. "But you stopped and really looked at it." Most people see the bracelets as pretty accessories or conversation pieces. "You saw the astronomy? Asked about the perspective? That tells me you think about things beyond their surface appearance." Nathan felt James shifting impatiently beside him, checking his watch with increasing frequency. The Goldman meeting was important, a potential partnership that could expand Crosstech's reach into new markets. Victoria's dinner was part of a carefully orchestrated social dance that his mother had been choreographing for months. Yet something about this unexpected encounter made those obligations feel less urgent. "Do you make all of these yourself?" Nathan asked, gesturing to the impressive array spread across the table. "Every piece," Luna confirmed. "I work in my studio above my apartment. It's not much to look at, but it has good light and enough space for my tools. Each bracelet takes about a week to complete, from initial concept to final polish." Nathan did quick calculations in his head. If each piece sold for around $50 and took a week to make, Luna was earning far less than minimum wage for work that required extraordinary skill and artistic vision. The economist in him wanted to lecture her about pricing strategies and market value. It's the part of him that was growing increasingly fascinated by her. Perspective wanted to understand why financial success seemed so unimportant to her. "Don't you want to expand? Scale up production?" You could license your designs or teach others your techniques. Luna laughed, a sound that reminded Nathan of wind chimes in a gentle breeze. You sound like someone who thinks in terms of quarterly reports and growth projections. Not everything is meant to be scaled up. Some things are meant to stay small and personal and real. The observation stung because it was so accurate. Nathan realized he hadn't had a conversation in months that wasn't ultimately about expansion, efficiency, or profit margins. Even his interactions with Victoria often circled back to social advancement and strategic networking. What if you could reach more people with your art? Share this beauty with a larger audience. What if I could? Luna agreed. But in the process, I lost the part of myself that creates it. What if growing bigger meant becoming smaller in the ways that actually matter? The purchase and promise, Ethan handed her 3 $20 bills, telling her to keep the change. Luna accepted the money without ceremony, then carefully placed the Cassiopeia bracelet in a small box lined with soft fabric. "Will you wear it?" she asked as she handed him the box. The question caught Nathan off guard. He couldn't remember the last time he had worn jewelry beyond his watch and wedding ring from a brief marriage that had ended 5 years earlier. "I'm not sure. I've never really been a bracelet person." "Maybe that's exactly why you should try it," Luna suggested. "Sometimes the things we think aren't for us are exactly what we need to remind us who we could become." As Nathan fastened the bracelet around his wrist, he was surprised by how natural it felt. The constellation seemed to pulse gently against his skin, and he found himself wondering what the stars of Cassiopeia might look like to someone traveling between worlds. Sir James interrupted with barely concealed urgency. "We really must go." Nathan nodded, but found himself reluctant to leave. "Will you be here tomorrow?" "Every day except Sunday," Luna replied. "Rain or shine, I'm here from noon until sunset." "Every day? Don't you ever want to take a break?" Luna's expression grew thoughtful. "This isn't work for me. It's conversation. Every person who stops and looks at my bracelets teaches me something new about beauty, about truth, about the stories we tell ourselves and each other. Why would I want to take a break from that?" As Nathan walked away, he found himself touching the bracelet beneath his suit jacket sleeve. He could feel its subtle weight and warmth, a reminder of an encounter that had lasted less than 20 minutes but somehow shifted something fundamental in his perspective. Behind him, he could hear Luna greeting her next customer with the same genuine enthusiasm she had shown him, as if each interaction was a small gift rather than a transaction. "Who was that?" James asked, as they hurried toward the waiting car. Nathan looked back over his shoulder, watching Luna demonstrate the moving parts of a bracelet to a young couple who seemed enchanted by her explanations. "I'm not sure," he answered honestly, "but I think I'd like to find out." The Goldman meeting proceeded exactly as Nathan had anticipated. Charts were presented, projections were discussed, and handshakes were exchanged with the satisfaction of businessmen who had successfully negotiated mutually beneficial terms. Throughout the afternoon, Nathan found his attention drifting to the bracelet hidden beneath his sleeve and the woman who had created it with such obvious love for her craft. The morning after, Athen Cross woke before dawn in his penthouse apartment overlooking San Francisco Bay, something that hadn't happened in years without the assistance of multiple alarms. The Cassiopeia bracelet lay on his nightstand, where he had carefully placed it before sleep. Floor-to-ceiling windows. He had dreamed of stars and conversations about perspective. Every piece of furniture had been selected by an expensive interior designer who specialized in creating spaces that photographed well for lifestyle magazines. The kitchen contained appliances that cost more than most people's cars, but were rarely used for anything more complex than reheating takeout. The living room featured a piano that Nathan had played obsessively during college but hadn't touched. In 5 years, everything was perfect, curated, and somehow completely devoid of personality. Nathan fastened the bracelet around his wrist as he prepared for the day, surprised by how natural the gesture felt. The metal was warm against his skin, and he found himself glancing down at the miniature constellation throughout his morning routine. There was something comforting about carrying a piece of Luna's artistry with him, a tangible reminder that beauty could exist without purpose beyond simply being beautiful. James. arrived at precisely 7:30 with Nathan's usual coffee and the morning briefing. His assistant's efficiency was legendary throughout the company. His ability to anticipate Nathan's needs and manage his schedule, bordering on supernatural. Yet this morning, Nathan found himself wondering what James did. When he wasn't orchestrating the life of a billionaire, did he have hobbies, dreams that extended beyond professional advancement? A life that existed independently of Nathan's requirements? "Good morning, sir," James said, settling into his customary chair across from Nathan's breakfast table. "Peterson contract arrived overnight and requires your signature. The board has requested a meeting this afternoon regarding the European expansion timeline. Your mother called 3 times before 6 this morning about tomorrow's charity gala, and Victoria sent flowers with a note thanking you for dinner last night." Nathan nodded absently, his attention caught by the way the morning light transformed the city below into something that looked almost magical from this height. Somewhere down there, Luna was probably preparing for another day of creating beauty one bracelet at a time, completely unaware that she had somehow managed to shift the foundation of his carefully constructed world with a 20-minute conversation. About perspective and truth, the return visit by noon, Nathan found himself making excuses to leave the office early. He told James he needed to walk and think about the Peterson contract, which wasn't entirely untrue. What he didn't mention was that his path would inevitably lead him through the historic district where Luna set up her jewelry stand each day. She was there, of course, arranging her display with the same careful attention he had witnessed the day before. Today she wore a flowing skirt in deep purple and a white blouse that seemed to glow in the afternoon sunlight. Her dark hair was pulled back with what appeared to be one of her own creations, a delicate headband that incorporated tiny gears and crystals in a pattern that suggested both movement and stability. Nathan approached with less hesitation than he had the previous day, though he still felt the uncertainty of someone venturing into unfamiliar territory. Luna looked up as he drew near, and her face brightened with genuine pleasure at seeing him again. "You came back," she said, her tone warm with surprise and something that might have been delight. "And you're wearing the bracelet?" Nathan glanced down at his wrist, where the Cassiopeia constellation was visible beneath his rolled-up shirt sleeve. "It felt right," he said simply, though the admission surprised him with its honesty. "How did it feel to carry the stars with you?" Luna asked, and Nathan realized she wasn't making conversation but genuinely curious about his experience. "Different," Nathan replied, searching for words to describe something he didn't fully understand himself. "Like I was remembering something I didn't know I had forgotten." Luna's smile suggested she understood exactly what he meant. That's what happens when we pay attention to beauty instead of just efficiency. We remember that we're part of something larger and more mysterious than our daily routines. Nathan found himself studying Luna's face as she spoke, noting the way her eyes lit up when she discussed her philosophy about art and life. There was an intelligence in her expression that went far beyond the practical wisdom of a street vendor, a depth that suggested education and experience in worlds beyond jewelry making. "The revelation, can I ask you something?" Nathan said, settling onto the small folding chair that Luna kept beside her table for customers who wanted to examine her work more closely. "Yesterday you talked about perspective in astronomy with the kind of knowledge that doesn't come from casual interest. What did you do before this?" Luna's hands paused in their arrangement of a particularly complex bracelet that seemed to contain moving parts within its crystal elements. For a moment, her expression shifted, revealing something that looked like old pain carefully managed. "That's a complicated question," she said finally. "What we did before and who we are now don't always connect in straight lines." Nathan waited, sensing that patience would be rewarded with honesty. He had learned in business that the most important information often came in the silences between words. "I was an engineer," Luna said eventually. "Aerospace. Specifically, I worked for Meridian Industries designing navigation systems for deep space exploration vehicles. I had my doctorate by 24 and was leading a team of 12 researchers on a project that could have revolutionized how we think about interstellar travel." The revelation hit Nathan like a physical blow. Meridian Industries was one of the most prestigious aerospace companies in the world, known for hiring only the absolute best minds in their fields. The idea that Luna had walked away from such A career to sell handmade jewelry on street corners seemed incomprehensible. What happened? Nathan asked gently. Luna was quiet for a long moment, her fingers working automatically to adjust the display while her mind seemed to be traveling through memories she rarely allowed herself to visit. We were developing a guidance system that could calculate trajectories through gravitational fields we had never encountered before, she began, her voice taking on the precise tone of someone who had once explained complex concepts to rooms full of brilliant colleagues. The mathematics were beautiful. It's elegant in a way that made me believe we were touching something fundamental about how the universe actually works. She paused to help a customer examine a bracelet that incorporated what appeared to be tiny mechanical movements within its design. Nathan watched her switch effortlessly between the role of artist vendor and what he now recognized as the remnants of her identity as a scientist and teacher. The system worked perfectly in computer simulations, Luna continued after the customer moved on. Every calculation checked out, every variable accounted for. But when we installed it in the prototype vehicle for the first unmanned test flight, something went wrong. Not with my calculations, but with the communication protocols between my navigation system and the ship's other computers. The vehicle was lost, along with 3 years of research and $47 million in development costs. Nathan found himself leaning forward, drawn into her story, despite himself. But if the problem wasn't with your work, it doesn't matter where the technical failure occurred, Luna said with the weary tone of someone who had fought this battle many times before. I was the lead engineer. The responsibility was mine. Meridian Industries decided that someone needed to be held accountable, and I was the obvious choice. They didn't fire me outright, but they made it clear that my career trajectory had fundamentally changed. The choice to leave Nathan felt a familiar anger rising in his chest, the same protective instinct that had driven him to build his company's reputation on loyalty and fair treatment of employees. So you quit. Fought for 6 months, Luna said, her voice gaining strength as she remembered her younger self's determination. I presented evidence that the failure was in the integration protocols, not the navigation system. I demonstrated that the calculations were sound and could be applied to future projects. I even developed preliminary designs for improved communication systems that would prevent similar failures. Luna's hands had stopped their constant motion among the bracelets, and Nathan could see the engineer in her more clearly now, the precision and logical thinking that had once tackled problems of interstellar navigation. But they had already decided what the story would be, she continued. The brilliant young woman who had risen too fast and taken on responsibilities beyond her capabilities. The cautionary tale about diversity hiring and giving people opportunities they weren't really ready for. It became easier to let me take the blame than to admit that their integration systems were flawed. Nathan felt his jaw tighten with recognition. He had seen similar dynamics in the business world. The way organizations sometimes chose convenient narratives over uncomfortable truths. That's unconscionable. It's business, Luna said, with a shrug that didn't quite hide the old hurt. I could have stayed and fought longer, maybe even won eventually, but I realized that proving myself right wouldn't give me back what I had really lost, which was the joy of discovery. The excitement of pushing boundaries, the feeling that my work was contributing to something larger than corporate profits and quarterly reports. Luna's voice grew softer, more reflective. Somewhere in all the fighting and justifying and political maneuvering, I had stopped feeling like a scientist and started feeling like just another employee defending my position. Nathan understood this feeling more deeply than he wanted to admit. There had been moments in his own career when the excitement of building something innovative had been overshadowed by the mechanics of managing growth and maintaining market position. The birth of an artist, so you started making jewelry, Nathan said, trying to understand the connection between aerospace engineering and handcrafted bracelets. Luna laughed, the sound carrying both sadness and genuine amusement. Not immediately. First, I spent about 6 months feeling sorry for myself and questioning everything. I thought I knew about my capabilities and worth. I was angry and hurt and completely lost about what came next. She picked up one of her more complex pieces, a bracelet that seemed to contain a miniature orrery, with tiny planets orbiting a central crystal sun. Then one day I was walking through a craft fair and saw an old man making clockwork sculptures. and tiny mechanical birds that moved their wings, flowers that opened and closed with the turning of nearly invisible gears. The precision required was extraordinary, but he was doing it entirely by hand, without computer modeling or team collaboration or corporate oversight. Nathan could see where this was leading, understanding beginning to dawn as he watched Luna's face light up with the memory. I started talking to him about the mathematics of mechanical movement, the physics of gear ratios and spring tension. He listened to me explain orbital mechanics, and then showed me how the same principles could be applied to creating beauty instead of just functionality. He offered to teach me his techniques if I would help him understand the calculations that could make his pieces more precise. Luna set down the orrery bracelet and met Nathan's eyes directly. I discovered that everything I loved about engineering, the problem-solving and precision and creative application of physical laws, could exist in this work too. But here nobody could take away my discoveries or claim credit for my innovations, or reduce my worth to quarterly performance metrics. The deeper understanding Nathan found himself studying Luna's bracelets with new eyes, recognizing now the sophisticated engineering that went into each piece. What he had initially seen as folk art was actually applied physics and mechanical engineering disguised as jewelry. The moving parts weren't just decorative. They were functional demonstrations of complex mathematical principles. You're still doing aerospace engineering, he realized. You're just doing it on a different scale and for different purposes. Exactly, Luna said, her face glowing with pleasure at his understanding. Every bracelet is a small experiment in applied physics. The way light moves through crystals, the mechanics of gear systems, the mathematical relationships that create stability and movement. I'm still exploring the same questions about how things work and why they work that way. Nathan picked up the Cassiopeia bracelet he had purchased the day before, seeing it now not just as artistic jewelry, but as a sophisticated piece of engineering that demonstrated principles of spatial relationships and perspective. And you're doing it entirely on your own terms? No corporate politics, no budget limitations imposed by people who don't understand the work, no pressure to compromise the integrity of the design for commercial considerations. Luna's voice carried the satisfaction of someone who had found their true calling after losing everything they thought they wanted. Don't you miss the scope, though? The possibility of contributing to actual space exploration? Luna was quiet for a moment, considering the question with the seriousness it deserved. Sometimes, she admitted. There are nights when I look up at the stars and wonder what discoveries my navigation system might have made possible. But then I think about the freedom I have now to follow my curiosity wherever it leads, to create beauty without justification, to have conversations like this one with people who stop and really see what I'm doing. She gestured toward Nathan, and he realized that their conversation had been going on for nearly an hour without him once checking his phone or thinking about the obligations waiting back at his office. Besides, Luna continued with a mischievous smile, who says, I'm not still contributing to space exploration, just in ways that Meridian Industries never would have imagined. Nathan was about to ask what she meant when his phone buzzed with an urgent message from James. The afternoon board meeting was in 30 minutes, and there were 3 calls he needed to return before then. Reality crashed back over him like a cold wave, reminding him of the carefully structured world that existed beyond this small table covered in handmade wonders. I have to go, he said reluctantly, standing and straightening his suit jacket. But I'd like to continue this conversation. Would you have dinner with me tonight? Luna looked up at him with an expression that suggested she was weighing something more complex than a simple social invitation. Are you asking me as Nathan, the customer who bought a bracelet, or as someone else? The question caught Nathan off guard. He realized that he hadn't told Luna his last name or mentioned his company, and she clearly had no idea who he was, beyond a well-dressed man who had shown genuine interest in her work. Just as Nathan, he said, surprised by how much he wanted that to be true. Then yes, Luna said with a smile that made the afternoon sunlight seem pale by comparison. I'd like that very much. The revelation often arrived at Luna's apartment, building that evening with a mixture of anticipation and nervousness he hadn't felt since his teenage years. The address she had given him led to a converted warehouse in the arts district, far from the polished neighborhoods where he usually spent his time. The building's brick exterior showed its industrial origins, but flowering vines and colorful murals suggested the creative community that transformed it into affordable housing for artists and craftspeople. Luna met him at the entrance wearing a simple black dress that somehow managed to be both elegant and unpretentious. Her hair fell loose around her shoulders, and she wore one of her own creations, a necklace that seemed to capture and reflect light in patterns that shifted as she moved. "I thought we could eat at my place," she said, leading him toward the elevator. "I'm not much of a cook, but I make excellent pasta, and I wanted to show you my workshop." Nathan followed her up to the 4th floor, noting how different this building felt from his own sterile high-rise. The hallways were filled with the sounds of life, music practice from behind one door,
Howdy.
the smell of exotic spices from another, laughter echoing from somewhere above. It was chaotic and alive in a way that his expensive building, its soundproof walls and anonymous neighbors, had never been. Luna's apartment was small, but filled with personality. The main room served as both living space and workshop, with tables covered in tools and materials that looked like a cross between a jewelry maker's studio and an advanced physics laboratory. Precision instruments sat alongside hand tools. Computer monitors displayed complex mathematical equations. Half-finished bracelets incorporated components that looked far too sophisticated for simple costume jewelry. "This is where the magic happens," Luna said, gesturing toward her work area with obvious pride. "Not much to look at, but it has everything I need." Nathan moved closer to examine her workspace, his businessman's eye automatically cataloging the expensive equipment mixed among the traditional crafting tools. High-precision measuring devices, computer-controlled cutting tools, microscopes, that belonged in university research labs. This wasn't the setup of a simple artisan. This was the laboratory of someone conducting serious scientific research. "Luna," Nathan said slowly, picking up a device he recognized as a spectrometer used for analyzing material properties. "Some of this equipment costs more than most people make in a year. How does a street vendor afford laboratory-grade instruments?" Luna's expression shifted, and Nathan saw her making the same kind of calculation he made in business negotiations, weighing how much truth to reveal and how much to keep in reserve. "I never said I was just a street vendor," she replied carefully. "I said I used to be an engineer, and now I make jewelry." Never said the engineering stopped. The secret project over dinner, prepared on a small stove but somehow more satisfying than the elaborate meals Nathan usually consumed at expensive restaurants. Luna gradually revealed the full scope of what she had been working on since leaving Meridian Industries. The bracelets weren't just artistic expressions of scientific principles. They were prototypes for a revolutionary technology that could change how humans interacted with their environment. "Remember how I mentioned that my navigation system was designed to calculate trajectories through unknown gravitational fields?" Luna asked, refilling Nathan's wine glass with a bottle that had clearly been chosen for taste rather than prestige. "The same mathematical principles that govern spacecraft movement also apply to much smaller scales." She led him to her computer, where complex equations filled multiple monitors. Nathan recognized some of the mathematics from his own technical background, but much of it was beyond his comprehension. "I've been developing what I call responsive micromechanics," Luna explained, her voice taking on the passionate intensity Nathan had heard when she discussed her work. "Tiny mechanical systems that can detect and respond to environmental changes in real time. Temperature fluctuations, electromagnetic fields, even emotional stress expressed through changes in skin conductivity and heart rate." Nathan stared at the screen, beginning to understand the implications of what she was describing. "The bracelets aren't just jewelry, they're functional devices." "Prototypes," Luna corrected. "Each one tests different aspects of the technology. The Cassiopeia bracelet you bought yesterday contains sensors that monitor your stress levels and respond by adjusting the temperature of the metal against your skin. It's designed to help regulate your nervous system through subtle physical feedback." Nathan looked down at the bracelet on his wrist, suddenly aware of its gentle warmth against his skin. He had noticed feeling more relaxed when wearing it, but he had attributed that to the psychological effect of carrying something beautiful. Now he realized that Luna's creation had been actively working to calm his stress responses. "That's incredible," Nathan breathed. "Do you realize what this technology could mean? Medical applications, therapeutic devices, environmental monitoring systems. The commercial potential is enormous." Luna's expression grew guarded. "And there's the problem. The moment this becomes about commercial potential instead of human benefit, it stops being about discovery and starts being about profit margins and market penetration." Nathan felt a familiar excitement building, the same rush he experienced when encountering a breakthrough technology that could transform entire industries. His mind was already racing through possibilities, partnerships with medical device companies, licensing agreements, scaling up production to reach global markets. But Luna, think about how many people you could help if this technology was widely available. Instead of making individual bracelets for people who happen to walk past your stand, you could be developing devices that improve the lives of millions. At what cost? Luna challenged. "Do you think Meridian Industries cared about advancing human knowledge when they threw me under the bus to protect their reputation? You think any corporation prioritizes human benefit over shareholder returns when those interests conflict?" The dangerous interest their philosophical debate was interrupted by Luna's phone ringing. She glanced at the caller ID and frowned, letting it go to voicemail. When it immediately rang again, her frown deepened. "Excuse me," she said, stepping into the kitchen to take the call. Nathan could hear her side of the conversation, her voice growing increasingly tense. "I told you I'm not interested in selling. No, I don't care how much you're offering because it's not for sale. I don't care who you represent." She returned to the living room looking shaken, her earlier relaxed demeanor replaced by obvious anxiety. "Everything okay?" Nathan asked. "Someone's been asking questions about my work," Luna said, moving to the window to peer down at the street below. "The same person has called 6 times this week, claiming to represent investors who want to license my technology. But something feels wrong about it. They know too much about my background at Meridian, and they're being very persistent despite my refusal to engage." Nathan felt a chill of recognition. He had dealt with corporate espionage attempts before. Competitors who used various methods to gather intelligence about promising technologies before they reached the market. What kind of questions? Specific technical details about the responsive mechanics. Questions about my research methodology and whether I'm working alone. They've even asked about my daily routine, where I set up my stand, what my security arrangements are. Luna's voice carried genuine fear now. "Yesterday, someone was photographing me while I worked. When I confronted them, they claimed to be tourists, but the camera looked professional grade." Nathan's protective instincts activated immediately. His success in business had made him familiar with the darker aspects of corporate competition. The lengths some companies would go to acquire valuable technology or eliminate potential threats to their market position. Have you considered that this might be more than casual interest? If your technology is as revolutionary as it appears, there could be significant money at stake for companies that see you as either an opportunity or a threat. Luna sat down heavily on her couch, the weight of the situation clearly pressing on her. "I've been naive, haven't I? I thought I could just quietly develop my work and share it with people who appreciated it, without getting caught up in the same corporate machinations that destroyed my career the first time." "Not naive," Nathan said gently. "Idealistic. There's a difference. But you're right that significant innovations rarely stay hidden for long, especially when they have obvious commercial applications." The identity crisis. Athen spent the next hour helping Luna review the contacts she had received, using his experience in business security to identify potential red flags and security concerns. As they worked together, he found himself torn between his desire to protect her and his growing recognition that she needed to know who he really was. Finally, as they sat reviewing phone logs and email addresses, Nathan made his decision. "Luna, there's something I need to tell you about myself. Something I should have mentioned yesterday." She looked up from the papers they had been examining, noting the serious tone in his voice. "I haven't been entirely honest about who I am," Nathan continued. "My full name is Nathan Cross. I'm the founder and CEO of Crosstech Industries. Luna stared at him for a long moment, and Nathan watched as recognition dawned in her expression. Crosstech was one of the largest technology companies in the world, known for everything from artificial intelligence development to advanced manufacturing systems. Nathan's face had been on magazine covers and business news programs for years. That Nathan Cross, Luna said quietly. The billionaire tech genius who built an empire before turning 30. I'm the same Nathan who bought a bracelet from your stand and wanted to have dinner with you, Nathan replied. Everything else is just context. Luna stood up and walked to the window, her back to him, as she processed this revelation. Could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her hands clenched and unclenched as she worked through the implications. So when you were asking about commercial potential in global markets, you weren't just making conversation, you were evaluating my technology for possible acquisition. No, Nathan said firmly, standing to face her. When I was asking about commercial potential, I was thinking about how to help you protect and develop something incredible. But I can understand why you might not believe that. Luna turned to face him, and Nathan saw a mixture of hurt and anger. In her expression, how can I trust anything you've said? How do I know this entire relationship wasn't orchestrated as some elaborate method of corporate intelligence gathering? The accusation stung because Nathan could see how his deception might appear from her perspective. A powerful CEO showing unexpected interest in a street vendor's work, is asking probing questions about her background in technology, offering dinner and personal connection. From the outside, it looked exactly like the kind of sophisticated corporate manipulation that had already destroyed her career once. Because I didn't know about your technology when I first approached your stand, Nathan said. I was just a man who was tired of a successful but empty life, drawn to someone who seemed to have found meaning in their work. Everything that's happened since then has been me trying to understand why talking to you felt more real than anything I've experienced in years. The choice Luna studied his face with the same intense attention she gave to her most delicate mechanical work. Assuming I believe you. What happens now? You go back to your corporate empire, and I continue making bracelets on street corners until the next predatory company decides my technology is worth stealing. Nathan felt the weight of the choice before him. He could offer Luna the protection and resources of Crosstech Industries help her develop her technology safely and bring it to market in ways that would benefit both her and the millions of people who could be helped by responsive micromechanics. It was a logical business decision. It's a kind of partnership that created value for all parties involved. But he could also see the fear in Luna's eyes, the hard-earned wariness of someone who had already been betrayed by corporate promises of partnership and mutual benefit. She had found freedom and authenticity in her small-scale work, creating beauty and meaning on her own terms without compromise or oversight. I could offer you resources, Nathan said carefully. Funding for proper research facilities, security to protect your work, connections to help you patent and develop your technology safely. Crosstech could provide everything you need to take this to the next level. In exchange for what? Luna asked, and Nathan heard echoes of every corporate negotiation she had ever seen go wrong. In exchange for nothing, Nathan said, surprising himself with the certainty in his voice. It's not as a business proposition, but as someone who cares about you and believes in what you're doing. Luna moved closer to him, studying his expression with the intensity of someone trying to read a complex equation. And what would you get out of it? Nathan considered the question seriously, recognizing that his answer would determine everything that happened between them going forward. The chance to be part of something that matters, he said finally. The chance to use my resources and experience to help someone I care about achieve something extraordinary. The chance to remember what it feels like to build something beautiful instead of just profitable. And if I said no, if I decided I wanted to stay small and independent and keep selling bracelets on street corners, Nathan felt something shift. Inside his chest, a recognition that his feelings for Luna had moved far beyond business interest or even casual attraction. Then I'd respect that decision and find other ways to help keep you safe while you do the work that makes you happy. The resolution of Luna was quiet for a long time, moving around her apartment, touching the tools and materials that represented her chosen life. Nathan watched her internal struggle, understanding that she was weighing not just his offer but the fundamental question of whether it was possible to grow without losing the essential elements that made something valuable in the first place. "There's something else you should know," Luna said finally. "The responsive micromechanics technology isn't just theoretical. I've been conducting extensive field tests for the past 8 months, gathering data on real-world applications and effectiveness." She led Nathan to a locked cabinet and removed a collection of notebooks filled with detailed observations and measurements. "Every bracelet I've sold has been part of a controlled study. I've been tracking how the technology affects stress levels, sleep patterns, emotional regulation, even creative thinking. The results are extraordinary." Nathan scanned the meticulous data collection, recognizing the work of a serious researcher who had never stopped being a scientist despite her change in circumstances. "This is publishable research. Peer-reviewed journal-quality work that could establish the scientific foundation for an entire new field." "Exactly. And that's what I want to do with it? Not commercialize it immediately, but establish the scientific credibility first. Build a body of research that can't be ignored or suppressed or manipulated by corporate interests." Nathan felt a surge of admiration for Luna's strategic thinking. She hadn't just been hiding from the corporate world. She'd been building something that could ultimately prove more powerful than any business partnership. "What would you need to make that happen?" "Time, resources, and protection while I complete the research phase. Access to proper testing facilities and peer review networks. Most importantly, the freedom to publish results regardless of their commercial implications." "Added, nodded. "I can provide all of that. Not through Crosstech, but personally. Private funding with no strings attached, no oversight beyond what you choose to accept." "Why would you do that?" Nathan looked around Luna's small apartment, taking in the evidence of her brilliant work and determined independence. He thought about his own life, the successful but sterile existence he had built. The way his conversation with Luna had awakened something he hadn't realized he was missing. "Because you've reminded me that the best innovations come from passion and curiosity, not market analysis and profit projections. Because watching you work has made me remember why I started my company in the first place. Because I think what you're doing could change the world, and I want to be part of making that happen in the right way." Luna moved closer to him, and Nathan could see that she was making her own calculation about trust and risk and the possibility of building something meaningful together. "If we do this," she said, "it has to be as equals, not patron and artist, not investor and entrepreneur. Partners who both bring something essential to the work." "What would I bring?" Nathan asked. "Resources, obviously, but also perspective. You understand systems and scaling and how to navigate complex organizations. I'm brilliant at the technical work, but I've proven I'm not so good at protecting myself from people who want to exploit that brilliance." Nathan felt something settle into place inside his chest, a sense of purpose and direction he hadn't experienced since his early days of building Crosstech from nothing. "So we do this together. You continue the research. I provide support and protection. You publish the results and establish the scientific foundation before we even consider commercial applications." "And personally?" Luna asked, stepping close enough that Nathan could see the gold flecks in her honey-colored eyes. "Personally, I'd like to see where this goes when it's not complicated by corporate espionage and technology theft," Nathan said, reaching for her hand. "I'd like to find out what happens when two people who've both lost sight of what really matters decide to build something meaningful together." Luna smiled, the expression transforming her entire face and making Nathan feel like he was seeing her clearly for the first time. "I'd like that too." The new beginning 6 months later. Nathan stood in the converted warehouse that now served as Luna's research facility, watching her train a group of graduate students in the principles of responsive micromechanics. The space was a perfect blend of high-tech laboratory and artisan workshop, equipped with the finest research equipment but maintaining the creative atmosphere that had nurtured Luna's breakthrough discoveries. The first peer-reviewed paper had been published to international acclaim, establishing Luna as a leading researcher in the emerging field of bioresponsive technology. 3 more papers were in various stages of review, and universities around the world were requesting collaborations. The technology that had started as handmade bracelets was now being studied as a potential treatment for anxiety disorders, chronic pain management, and even certain types of depression. Nathan had stepped back from day-to-day operations at Crosstech, appointing a capable CEO while he focused on what he now called meaningful innovation. The foundation he had created to support Luna's work had expanded to fund other researchers who were pursuing human-centered technology development, prioritizing social benefit over profit potential. "How does it feel to be a patron of the sciences instead of a corporate overlord?" Luna teased, joining him at the observation window, overlooking her laboratory. "Like I'm finally doing the work I was meant to do," Nathan replied, slipping his arm around her waist. "Though I prefer research partner to patron." Luna laughed. The sound still capable of making Nathan feel like the world was full of possibilities he had never imagined. "Fine. How does it feel to be a research partner instead of a corporate overlord?" Nathan looked down at the Cassiopeia bracelet on his wrist, now one of dozens of responsive devices that Luna's team had developed and refined. The tiny constellation still caught and reflected light in mesmerizing patterns. But now Nathan knew it was also continuously monitoring and supporting his physical and emotional well-being with technology that bordered on magic. "Like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be," he said, turning to face the woman who had taught him the difference between a successful life and a meaningful one. "Like I'm finally seeing the stars from the right perspective." Luna stood on her toes to kiss him, and Nathan marveled at how a chance encounter with a street vendor selling handmade bracelets had led him to discover not just revolutionary technology, but the person he was meant to become when he stopped performing success and started living authentically. Outside the laboratory windows, San Francisco hummed with the energy of millions of people pursuing their own versions of purpose and connection. Somewhere in the city, other chance encounters were happening. Other possibilities were being born from the simple act of one person seeing another clearly and choosing to engage with curiosity. Instead of assumption, Nathan and Luna had found each other through a combination of circumstance and choice. But they had built something lasting through the harder work of trust, partnership, and shared commitment to creating beauty in a world that often prioritized efficiency over meaning. Their story was ending where the best stories do, not with perfect resolution, but with the promise of continued discovery, growth, and the endless possibility of building something meaningful together. The stars of Cassiopeia continued their ancient dance across the night sky, unchanged by human observation, but somehow more beautiful for being seen, understood, and celebrated by two people who had learned that the most important innovations happen not in laboratories or boardrooms, but in the moments when we choose to see each other clearly and build something genuine together.